Hello everyone. In the last class we tried to understand what exactly chemistry is, what is bond, what are bond parameters and all. Now what happens when you break a bond, you can break a covalent bond in two different ways. Either you can break the bond homolytically or heterolytically. If you break a bond homolytically, it leads to the formation of free radicals containing one electron each. If you break the bond heterolytically, it leads to the formation of ions. That is what we discussed in the last class. Let us proceed with some more information today. Now, today's class we are talking about the reaction intermediates. Okay? Now, what do you mean by reaction intermediates? Now, let us see. Let us assume that we have a reactant molecule A, which upon reaction gives the product B. Now, we generally assume that A is directly giving the compound B, but that is not the case happening. What is happening? In an organic reaction, this A converts into B passing through some intermediate stage. So, that stage is what we call intermediates. Okay? So, these reaction intermediates are formed in between the reactants and products, and they are having lowest free energy. Okay? That means free energy minima. That is how we understand. So, just to give the clarification of this concept, let us take a simple example what we have studied in second PUC. Let us consider the unimolecular nucleophilic substitution reaction, that is also called SN1 reaction. For SN1 reaction and SN2 reaction, we generally write energy profile diagram in PUC. I am going to reconstruct the same energy profile diagram just to make you understand. Now, see, this is potential energy and this is reaction coordinate. RC represents reaction coordinates. That means over the time how these different parameters like bond length, bond angles are changing towards the product. Now, if you carefully observe, so this is how the energy profile diagram of SN1 reaction looks like. Okay, now as I said earlier, intermediate is something which is having the lowest free energy, the minimum free energy minima here. This point is what we call the intermediate. In this case, what happens here? The carbocation will be formed. A tertiary carbocation will be formed in this state. That is intermediate. Now, let us try to understand it in deeper section. How many intermediates are there? So, before going to that, we also talk about transition state, because you often come with both of the words. Sometimes we say reaction intermediate. The reaction intermediates are like different types: carbocations, carbanions, free radicals, carbenes and nitrines. These are the different intermediates we are going to discuss in this topic, in this video lecture. But I just want to give clarification about the transition state. Okay? So, in order to understand the transition state, let us assume an SN2 reaction. You have studied SN2 reaction, like SN2. SN2 is a single step process. In SN2 there is no formation of intermediate ions. Any intermediate will not be formed, no intermediates. But in SN2 reaction, definitely there is an intermediate formed. I will write the energy profile diagram of SN2 reaction. If you observe carefully, again potential energy versus reaction coordinate. The graph would look like this. Okay, there is no intermediate now. Okay, but instead we have an energy maxima. This point is now called transition state. In PUC you might have come across with that reaction. Let me write the reaction here. You take methyl chloride and you add KOH. The hydroxyl ion behaves as a nucleophile. Before forming methyl alcohol, you will get a state like this. Okay, you will get a. We generally represent with the square brackets. Sometimes intermediate can also be, means this transition state is also represented like this. But so this is a transition state. Okay, we generally say that the SN2 mechanism passes through a transition state where carbon is assumed to have 5 covalent bonds. Okay, this is a transition state. Intermediates, what I am talking about, what I talked about earlier, these intermediates can easily be captured. You can isolate them. But you cannot do the same thing for this transition state. It's hypothetical one. It passes through that. Okay, that means the reactants are converting into products through this temporary state. These are highly unstable states. Doesn't matter whether it is reactive intermediates or doesn't matter whether it is transition state. Both of them are highly unstable. You cannot actually see when they are forming. You cannot actually identify with any of the methods, but it passes through the reaction. So that is called transition state. Hope you understood what I am saying. Intermediates or the energy minima, and this transition state is energy maxima, and this energy difference between here, this is called energy of activation. I hope you understood. Now this is about intermediates and transition state. Now as I said earlier, our concern is only about intermediates. We are not talking about transition state in detail. We are talking about the reactive intermediates. Now we have several intermediates like carbocation, carbanion, free radical, nitrines and carbene. Today's class we will discuss only about carbocations. If possible, we will go for anions. So let us talk about carbocations. Now what we are going to discuss about carbocations, I have already written a few points. Let us try to know what are carbocations, how these carbocations can be classified, what is the structure of this carbocation, its stability, how we can generate carbocations, and what are the reactions involved. Those are the things we have to discuss in this video lesson. Now let us begin. The first point, what do you mean by carbocation? In order to understand what do you mean by carbocation, let us assume that we have a bond like this. This R group may be R is equal to H or any alkyl or aryl group. Okay, aryl group. Now what happens? Imagine that we have a fourth bond here attached to a more electronegative atom. Let's say it is attached to more electronegative atom. As we already know, if the two atoms which are bonded covalently are having different electronegativity, the bond per electron will obviously be shifted towards the more electronegative atom. And if you break such type of bond, it always breaks in a heterolytic fashion, leading to the formation of ions. That is what we understood in the previous video lecture. Now what is happening? Let us imagine that we have broken this bond. It undergoes heterolytic fission. So let us imagine that the electronegativity of X is more than carbon, so it takes up the electron, leaving behind carbon with a positive charge. I'll write here. So C, R plus and X minus. Now this is called carbocation. How we can define? Carbon which bears a positive charge. The word itself is saying to you, because if you just simply split this, carbocation, carbo represents carbon and cation represents the positive charge on carbon atom. So we'll talk about that. So this is carbocation. In the simplest way, positively charged carbon or carbon bearing positive charge. That means introduction is enough. Let us talk about the classification. Now how do we classify these carbocations? Carbocations are classified into three types. First one is primary carbocation. What do you mean by primary carbocation? Imagine the tetravalent carbon atom like this. Here H, here CH3. I'll write this one. I'll write like this. This is ethyl carbocation. If you carefully observe, the carbon which is bearing positive charge, is attached to one more carbon atom. Okay, this carbon atom may be alkyl, aryl, any group it may be. So at this moment, what do you need to understand? The carbon which is bearing positive charge is attached to one more carbon atom. We call them as primary carbocation. This 1 degree actually represents primary. It's called primary. Now secondary carbocation. So in this case, what happens? I am writing CH3 here, don't get confused. As I said, this can be any group, any alkyl or aryl group. In this case, I am written isopropyl carbocation. So look here, in this case, the carbon which is bearing positive charge, is in turn attached to two different carbon atoms, two carbon atoms. This is 1, this is 2. Here carbon is attached to only one carbon atom. So you can call this type of carbocations as secondary carbocations. Okay. Now let us move on. What about tertiary carbocation? Tertiary carbocation. Once again, see, this is carbon which is attached to the carbon bearing positive charge is attached to 3 carbon atoms. 3 carbon atoms, we call it as tertiary carbocation. Again, you can replace this methyl group by any alkyl or aryl group. That is to be remembered forever. So that is tertiary carbocation. This is very simple. We have primary, secondary and tertiary carbocation. This is how we classify the carbocations. Now classification is over. Now let us talk about the structure of carbocation. Let us talk about the structure of carbocations. Now you just observe here what I am going to write. Okay, let us see what is the structure. I will write here structure. So from the elementary classes we all know that the carbon, see, if you look at this molecule, this is methyl chloride molecule. I have written CH3Cl. Since this carbon is sp3 hybridized, the shape of this molecule is tetrahedral. The shape of this molecule is tetrahedral in nature. Okay, see, the carbon is sp3 hybridized. Imagine that you are actually breaking this carbon and chlorine bond. As I said, the carbon and chlorine bond is polarized and obviously you are going to get heterolytic cleavage leading to the formation of cation and negatively charged species. So what happens, you will get the compound like this, CH3 plus Cl minus. Now we got methyl carbocation. See, I have discussed primary, secondary and tertiary carbocations. Methyl carbocations does not belong to any of these 3. It is quite separate in nature. We simply call it as methyl carbocation. In some textbook they say super primary, but let us simply say that it is a methyl carbocation itself. Now if you observe this methyl carbocation, if you expand its structure, let us see how exactly it looks like. This is how it looks. Now what is the change that has been taken place? Now if you observe this methyl chloride molecule, it is the carbon atom is sp3 hybridized, so the geometry is tetrahedral in nature. But once when the sp3 carbon changes its hybridization to sp2, I am telling you, when the carbon breaks its bond, the hybridization changes from sp3 to sp2. Because we all know from VSEPR theory, if the hybridization is sp2, the preferred shape is trigonal planar. Okay, now this is sp2 hybridized, so obviously you will have trigonal planar geometry. Okay, that means carbocation is having sp2 hybridization, it is trigonal planar in nature. And since it is sp2 hybridized, the bond angle here will be 120 degree. I will write here hybridization changes is sp2. Second one is bond angle is 120 degree. This carbocation is actually trivalent and contain sextet of electrons. It contains sextet of electrons. I will write it separately. It contains sextet of electron. Sextet of electron means it contains 6 electron pair around the carbon atoms. You can count it. There are 3 sigma bonds here. Each bond represents 2 electrons. So 2, 4, 6. It contains sextet of electrons. That is, it is electron deficient in nature. It is electron deficient in nature. Now, finally, we will talk about the stability in the next order. I hope you understood how things happen. See, earlier it was sp3 hybridized. Imagine like this. SPPP. This was the hybridization before the cleavage of the bond. Now, after the formation of carbocation, it becomes like this, spp, and this becomes unhybridized p orbital. This becomes unhybridized p orbital. So this unhybridized p orbital will lie parallel to the existing bonds. I will write the structure of this. See, this is hydrogen here, hydrogen here, hydrogen here. So the unhybridized p orbital will lie parallel to the plane of the bonds. So I hope you understood. So that is about the structure of carbocation. So what will we discuss? We try to understand what are carbocations, classify as primary, secondary and tertiary, and we discussed this structure. Next we'll try to understand what is the stability order of these carbocations. Okay. So we discussed the structure of the carbocation. Now we'll move on to the stability. What do you mean by stability? Stability is nothing but like being comfortable, stable. Okay. So we'll try to understand. In the classification section, we have already come across with the fact that carbocation exists in 3 different types: primary, secondary and tertiary. Now we need to analyze which one becomes more stable and why. Okay. So let us talk about stability of carbocations. Now let me write the structure of Now I have written 3 different structures. This is primary carbocation, that is ethyl carbocation. This is secondary isopropyl carbocation, and this is tertiary butyl carbocation. Now we need to understand, we need to analyze which one is more stable based on 3 different factors. Now let us go one by one and try to understand based on those parameters how exactly we can write the stability order here. The first point is inductive effect. The first point is inductive effect. Now that means electron donating or withdrawing. You already studied the basics of this point, how bond polarization occurs and all. Now we'll talk about inductive effect. How based on inductive effect we can give the stability order for these 3 carbocations. Now what is the point here? If the groups which are attached to carbon, are electron donating in nature, that means in simple words, if the group attached to carbon or if they intensify the positive charge, then the molecule becomes unstable. Okay? So that means if these groups, let us assume that I have not written methyl group here, I have simply written R group. If this R group attached to carbocation intensifies the positive charge, that means it is destabilizing it. Now if it is decreasing the positive charge, that means it is stabilizing it. Okay, so with that we can conclude that if the groups attached to carbons are electron donating, then they are highly stable in nature. Understood the point? Okay, if the groups attached to positively charged carbon or electron donating in nature, they stabilize the cation. If the group attached to carbocation is electron withdrawing in nature, they intensify the positive charge and thereby creating the destability. Okay. Now we'll write based on that we can say that look here in tertiary carbocation 3 groups are electron releasing in nature, because we know that alkyl groups are electron donating in nature. In tertiary carbocation what's happening, you are donating, all the 3 methyl groups are donating electrons. Since they are donating electrons, the positive charge will be neutralized to some extent, that means they get stabilized. Okay. So what about in isopropyl carbocation? In isopropyl carbocation or a secondary carbocation, there are only 2 alkyl groups attached. That means this will give, this will give. There are only 2 possibilities, it means 2 ways. Okay. That means it is less stable than tertiary. But in case of primary carbocation, once again, there is only 1 alkyl group here, and the extent to which it is stabilizing the carbocation is less when compared to secondary carbocation, which is in turn less when compared to tertiary carbocation. So based on inductive effect, we can say that tertiary carbocation is more stable than secondary carbocation, which is more stable than primary carbocation. That is about inductive effect. Second one is hyperconjugation. Hyperconjugation or no bond resonance. No bond resonance. This is quite tricky one. How you will understand this? I just try to explain it with the help of a primary carbocation. You can apply the same thing to secondary and tertiary. Let me write the molecule like this. I have written same ethyl carbocation in this way. Now there is a positive charge here. Now what happens? This carbocation, as I said, it is trigonal planar in nature, and there is an unhybridized p orbital here. Unhybridized p orbital here. So just to make you understand, I'll write like this only. For a short period of time, what happens? This sigma bond here is there, no? There is a positive charge here. This carbon is having a positive charge here. That means it has empty vacant p orbital. For a temporary purpose, what happens? These sigma electrons here on the neighboring carbon atom will come here to balance this positive charge. So what happens? You can write that here like this. Now this hydrogen is not leaving the molecule. That means since they are parallel to each other, what is happening? There is a temporary overlapping of these sigma orbitals and this unhybridized p orbital. So the electrons are, for a temporary purpose, it is shared. So this is called hyperconjugation effect. Now how many structures you can write like this? This time, imagine that this is hydrogen number 1. Next time what happens? It comes back to same position. Again second time the hydrogen 2 goes like that, and third time hydrogen 3 goes. Since there are 3 hydrogen atoms in the adjacent carbon atom, you can write 3 different hyperconjugated structure. I am not writing all the structures on the board right now. I have written only one. Hope you understood the point. Okay. So in this case, the hydrogen 1 has been exchanged, and next time hydrogen 1 gets back the covalent bond, hydrogen 2 goes. Again it gets back the covalent bond, hydrogen 3 goes. So this is how it takes place. So what you can say that due to this hyperconjugation, the carbocation is stabilizing to certain extent, at least for the small time. If not for forever, it is being stabilized. Okay. So how many hyperconjugation structures you can write for primary carbocation is 3, equal to number of hydrogens on the adjacent carbon atoms. Now how many you can write for secondary carbocation? For secondary carbocation, you can look here. See, 3 hydrogen atom here, 3 here. Totally you can write 6 hyperconjugation structures. That means it is more than 3. So that implies that secondary carbocation can have more number of hyperconjugation structures, more stability. If you write for tertiary, this is secondary, the tertiary, there are 9 hydrogen atoms means there are 9 hydrogen atoms on the adjacent carbon atoms, means 3 carbon atoms. So you can write 9 hyperconjugative structures. More the number of hyperconjugation structure, more is the stability. So we can simply say that tertiary is more stable than secondary, is more stable than primary. That is the second point. Now moving to the next point. So the next criteria is the resonance. So far we have seen how the stability of carbocation can be explained based on inductive effect and hyperconjugation effect. The last one here is resonance effect. Now there is too much of information regarding resonance. We will try to limit it to allyl and benzyl carbocations. Let me give you how resonance actually influence the stability of the carbocations here. First one is allyl carbocation. I am taking a simple example here. This is the allyl carbocation. Though it is primary, it is stabler than the rest of the carbocations what we talked about. Why? Because the allyl carbocation is actually resonance stabilized. Now what do you mean by resonance stabilized? the shifting of pi electrons. The pi, what is it? Delocalization of pi electrons to the charge spaces. Now in this case what happens, here is a pi bond. This pi bond shifts here temporarily. Then what happens? That means imagine that this is a pi bond with 2 electrons. It cuts here and joins here to this carbon atom. So what happens? You get CH double bond, CH2 plus. Now this is called resonance. We usually represent different resonance structures using this double-edged arrow mark like this. So what does it mean? They are having 2 different structures of the same compound. They are energetically same. Okay, they might look different, but energetically they are all same in nature. Now in this case what's happening? The carbocation, the primary carbocation here is actually stabilized by resonance. Now this can take place in multiple times. For a second it takes 1000 times in a second. Okay, you can only observe this if you decrease the temperature of the system. Now this is about allyl carbocation. Now let us take one more example here, that is benzyl carbocation. Benzyl carbocation. Just to compare, okay, how resonance can affect the stability in different order, in different magnitude. Now I write the benzyl carbocation here like this. Now this is benzyl carbocation. What happens? For a temporary purpose, this pi bond moves here to stabilize the carbocation. So you'll get the structure like this, CH2 plus. The positive charge is being delocalized. Okay, the pi bond moves there, the positive charge shift is here. Once again, this bond goes here. Positive charge. Migration. Again, to balance this positive charge, this pi bond here comes here. The positive charge goes here. Okay, finally, this pi bond comes here and you'll get this compound. Now if you carefully observe the first structure and the last structure, you can clearly see the difference. Okay, see from the first structure to the last structure, what has happened? You can see the pi bond location, it has been changed. Now look how many different resonance structures are possible for benzyl carbocation. Now the point here is, more the number of resonance means more the delocalization of positive charge, more stabler it is. So we can conclude that benzyl carbocation is stabler than allyl carbocation. Benzyl carbocation is more stable than allyl carbocation. Now we'll take one more example here. Okay, look at this compound. Now this compound is called pyron in heterocyclic chemistry. Now if you observe this first molecule, the carbocation is formed next to oxygen atom, and in this case the carbocation is away from the oxygen atom. In this case this is more stable than that one, because the lone pair on oxygen can donate electron to this carbocation and it can form compound like this. So this is like interchangeable resonance structures, so it becomes more stable in nature. Apart from this, we can also discuss about some like cyclic polyunsaturated systems like cyclopentadienyl cation, cyclopropenyl cation, and cycloheptatrinyl cations, and etc. At this moment, let us try to limit everything for the sake of simplicity. Now we discussed the stability order. The stability of carbocation can be explained based on few points. The first point is inductive effect. So higher the number of electron donating groups, more stable the carbocation is. Now based on high inductive effect, we can write tertiary is more stable than secondary, is more stable than primary. We are not talking about the exception cases. But at this, we are talking straight, okay, assuming the fact that there is only alkyl group attached to the carbon atom. Now, second point is hyperconjugation structure, hyperconjugation effect. We also already discussed that. Hyperconjugation means here, hyperconjugation effect. It's a temporary shifting of pi electron, temporary overlapping of the pi orbital, sigma orbital to the neighboring pi orbital, so that it can balance the positive charge like this. So we already also discussed that we can write 3 structures, hyperconjugation structures for primary, 6 for secondary and 9 for tertiary. More the number of hyperconjugation structure, more stable is the molecule. And the resonance. More the number of resonance structures, more stable the molecule is. That means we have finished stability. Next we'll go to generation of carbocations. Generation of carbocations. So far we discussed what is carbocation, what is the stability order for carbocations, how we can classify. Now we'll talk about how actually we can generate this carbocation during a chemical reaction. We'll talk about the generation of carbocations like this. Generation of There are so many methods to generate a carbocation, but we'll talk about only few things, very basic one, because you are just coming from PUC, so that you can easily understand how things are working. The first method is from alcohols. Alcohols are nothing but the hydroxy compounds. Now, I'll show you. I have taken an alcohol. This is a general formula of alcohols, or OH. Now, if you add H plus, if you protonate alcohol, you will get oxonium ion like this, OH2 plus. Now, you can clearly see that there is a positive charge developed on oxygen atom. So, it becomes totally unstable. Oxygen wants its lone pair back. It has lost its lone pair. Just to compensate the electrons lost, it takes up the electron from the sigma bond. It takes up both the electron from the sigma bond to nullify this positive charge. While doing so, the bond is cleaved heterolytically, and obviously you are going to get like this, R plus and H2O. Okay, the lone pair is regained. This is how carbocations are formed. Very quickly, I'll try to give an example. Let us take ethyl alcohol, and we are adding H plus. H plus is nothing but protonation. Protonation is nothing but we are adding acid, protic acid. So what happens? You will get CH3, CH2, OH2 plus. Finally, this bond breaks, and you will get CH3, CH2 plus OH2. Now you will get carbocation. You can extend the same concept to secondary or tertiary. That's quite okay. Second method is from amines. Now, what are amines? Amines are having the general formula RNH2. They are having general formula RNH2. How we can prepare carbocations from this? Very simple. We are adding nitrous acid. HNO2 is nothing but nitrous acid. This process is called diazotization. Hope you have studied it in your earlier classes. This process is also called diazotization. Sometimes it is also written as NaNO2 in presence of HCl, but this is what actually forms when you mix NaNO2 and HCl. So we say nitrous acid. You will get you will get aromatic or any diazonium salt. You will get diazonium salt, and this diazonium salt, upon heating, what happens? See, there is a positive charge on nitrogen here. Once again, the same concept. Since the positive charge on oxygen, it takes up the electron. Since there is a positive charge on nitrogen atom, it takes up the electron. This electron will be shifted here, leaving behind R with a positive charge. So you can write R plus N2. Okay, that's how things work now. This is carbocation. You can replace this R by any alkyl or aryl group. It works. The last one here is protonation of alkene. From alkenes we can write from alkenes. I am taking the simplest example. This is ethene. This molecule is called ethene. Now what we are adding? We are adding a mineral acid. Let us say, for example, we are adding HBr. In this case, I'll simply say H+. We know the fact that H+ represents a protic acid. It may be hydrochloric acid, nitric acid, sulfuric or acetic acid, whatever it may be. In this case, we are simply representing gas acid. So we protonate it. Now this proton is an electrophile. This pi bond here behaves as a nucleophile. So this pi bond here goes and takes up this proton, utilizing both the electron present in this pi bond, leaving behind the second carbon positively charged. So you can write like CH2, CH3H. So you can write CH3 here and positive charge. So these are the three methods from which we can generate carbocation. There are many other methods are there, but we are not worrying about those methods at this moment. For the sake of simplicity, as I said, if you understand these three, sufficient. So we understood the generation of carbocations. The last point of this video lecture is like reactions. Now what are we going to understand in this step? What are we going to understand in this step, that is reactions? So far we have generated these carbocations. How are they going to interact with other compounds chemically? What is the chemical interaction of this carbocation formed is our primary concern right now. So we'll discuss that, the reactions of carbocations. Okay. Now, there are only 3 points here. So we'll write reactions, right? Reactions. How it is going to react? Point is this carbocation. Let us assume that this is the carbocation we are having. Okay, carbocation here. It can have 3 different reactions. One is it can react with nucleophile. Since it is a positive charge, because in organic chemistry we know that the species which is positively charged is called electrophile and the one with negative charge is called nucleophile. So this positive charge can attract nucleophile to form an addition compound like this, or else this can undergo elimination reaction. I'll write like this. This can undergo elimination reaction to form this, or it can undergo rearrangement reaction to form like this. Okay, this is a butyl carbocation and these are the reaction possible. I'll write one example to each. I'll stop this lecture. Let us try to understand how things work. Let us imagine that we have this carbocation here and you add a nucleophile. Let us say for example OH minus. Okay, let us say for example OH minus. It combines with any nucleophile like OH minus, NH2 minus, NH3, water, hydroxyl ion, cyanide ion, any nucleophiles. So it attacks here and it forms a nucleophile. Okay, first point. So nucleophile over. Second one is elimination. Sometimes what happens, instead of a nucleophile, if you add a strong base, instead of undergoing substitution reaction, what happens here, it is this part, actually you have to call this a substitution reaction because there was something here, there was a leaving group here. Let us imagine we had chlorine and this bond is ionized to form this carbocation and this undergoes all these reactions and all. So the chlorine is substituted by a nucleophile. I am sorry I said addition. Chlorine is substituted by a nucleophile. The second step, I am taking the same example like here. Let us assume that we have CH3 here, we have CH3 here, okay, and we have CH2 plus here. What happens, instead of adding a nucleophile, if you add a base, let us say for example, alcoholic KOH, ethanolic KOH, that generates ETONA, sodium ethoxide. It generates sodium ethoxide, which is a strong base. So since it is a base, it doesn't attack. See, base is also having negative charge. Nucleophile is also having negative charge. So this negative charge, instead of attacking the positive charge, what it does, it abstracts a beta proton. It abstracts a beta proton. So what happens? This negative charge takes up this proton, only the proton. This bond will, I'm sorry, this is wrong. Not this proton, here is a proton. Okay, so this is alpha, this is beta. So this base will take up this proton and this bond comes here to neutralize the positive charge. Okay, so how you are going to get? You will get compound like this, CH3 double bond CH2. This is an elimination reaction. I have written positive charge here. Let us assume that it is a dehydrohalogenation reaction. Before that, here hydrogen from beta carbon and halogen from first carbon atom. Just to show the carbocation, I have written positive charge here. So before actually formation of carbocation, there was some halogen atom or any leaving group was present over there. That is the assumption. Now, did you understand the fact? If you add base instead of nucleophile, it takes up the beta hydrogen atom, leads to the formation of double bond. A hydrogen is eliminated from the molecule elimination reaction. Last one is rearrangement reaction. You might have heard of Markovnikov addition reaction. I'll write that in simpler way possible. Let us assume that we have propene. Okay, let us try to understand how things work. Now let us assume that this is what the compound we are talking about. Okay, this is what the compound we are talking about. Okay, just take not this one. Let us take a simplest example, not Markovnikov this time. Let us take this carbocation itself. Now, if you add, this is a butyl carbocation. Now, if you add any nucleophile to this molecule, you think that you can expect only one product, because obviously here I told you that the nucleophile attacks this carbocation and forms a substituted product. But here it doesn't happen like that. You are not going to get one compound, you are going to get two different compounds. That means one compound is like this, nucleophile, the other compound is like this, nucleophile. Now how this actually happened? It happened through the shifting of hydrogen atom, the hydride shifting of this hydride ion, that is called hydride shift. What happens? We already know the concept that the primary carbocation is less stable than tertiary carbocation. Here the primary carbocation is formed, but there is a possibility of forming tertiary carbocation. See, if you shift this positive charge here, it is primary. If it shift the positive charge here, primary. But if you shift the same positive charge to this carbon atom, it becomes tertiary. The molecule tries to adapt itself to the best place possible. Okay? So what happens? There is a hydrogen atom here. This hydrogen atom migrates to this carbon along with the bond electrons. In the form of hydride. So what happens? Since hydrogen is moving here, the positive charge will be shifted here. So that leads to the formation of a tertiary carbocation like this. Okay, see, I'll write it both structures. Earlier it was like this. This hydrogen shifts here, leading to the formation of more stable carbocation, that is tertiary carbocation. So your nucleophile attacks the primary carbocation as well as the rearranged carbocation to give two different products. But the major product will be the tertiary butyl compound. Okay, this will be the major and this will be the minor compound. So hope you understood. There are three different reactions we discussed today. The carbocation can either undergo nucleophilic substitution in the presence of strong nucleophile. it can undergo elimination reaction in the presence of a strong base, or it can undergo rearrangement reactions. There are many rearrangement reactions are there you are going to study in the upcoming classes, but at this moment, if you understood this one, that is quite sufficient.